أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير ثم أما بعد الحمد لله to you all السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, today we continue with our Islamic studies series. This is today's lesson number 4 when it comes to Usoolul Fiqh, origins of Islamic law. And over the past few lessons, we've laid the foundations and explained what it means and the overview of this course. And we've said that at the beginning of this course, we'll be focusing on words and kalimat and what the meaning of words are from the onset when they were put into the language. That will be the first perspective of analysis. And secondly, what we did was we looked at the words based upon how they're being used in that particular context, whether they are being intended or used in their true haqiqi meaning or in their metaphorical meaning, majazi meaning, whether they were being used directly to specify exactly what's being meant directly, or whether they're being used indirectly with kinaya. And today's third layer of analysis of words and their meanings, of dilalat al-alfaz, words and their indications and their meaning, is باعتبار ظهور المعنى وخفائه. We'll be looking at words based upon how clear the meaning is and how unclear it is. So the meaning of a word may be very clear, or it may be very unclear, or the meaning of a word may be quite clear, or it may be pretty unclear. So based upon that, in terms of clarity, there are 4 stages: clear, more clear, very clear, and absolutely clear, for example, right? Unclear, quite unclear, very unclear, and completely not comprehensible, completely unclear. So today's analysis will be 8 words. Today we'll go through 8 words, as in 8 words which refer to the meaning of a word, how clear it is or how unclear it is. Does that make sense? And this is called التقسيم الثالث باعتبار ظهور المعنى وخفائه. The third category according to the apparent or hidden meaning of a word, or based on how clear, how apparent, or how hidden, how unclear the meaning of a word is. So in that light, the first category is the type of word which is called Zahir. Zahir. The meaning of the word is Zahir. What does it mean? It means clear. It means clear. Then next, 4. So first stage of clarity is Zahir. It's apparent. So what is Zahir? Zahir is الظاهر كلام ظهر المراد به للسامع بنفس السماع من غير تأمل، كقوله تعالى وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. ظهر في حل البيع وحرمة الربا. Okay? أو ظاهر في حل البيع وحرمة الربا, which is saying ظاهر is a phrase, a word where the meaning is apparent to the listener. So ظاهر is a word. A ظاهر word is a word. A ظاهر word, a clear word, is a word in which the meaning is apparent to the listener without any further contemplation or elaboration. The word itself is quite clear in its meaning. It's quite self-explanatory. That's what he's saying, yeah? For example, as we said previously, Allah said in the Quran, Allah made bay' halal and riba haram. Okay? So Allah has made transaction permissible and made usury forbidden. The meaning of Allah has made transactions halal and usury forbidden is quite clear from the sentence. Okay? It is apparent that the transaction is permissible and the interest is forbidden. Like we don't need to further contemplate too much. Here, the ayah, the word, the phrase is quite clear in its dilala to say that it's zahir in its meaning. And Allah has made what's clear. What's clear is that Allah has made transactions permissible and Allah has made riba, usury, haram. Is that clear? وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. Allah has permitted transactions and forbidden riba, usury. So that's the meaning of Zahir, where the meaning could be understood by itself, just by looking at the word or the phrase without excessive contemplation. What's the ruling now? Now, if you come across an ayah or a hadith which is authentic and its meaning is Zahir, the meaning is Zahir, meaning the meaning is clear. It doesn't need extra explanation. It's quite clear. So what's the ruling? Like, what do you do with such an ayah? How do you practice it? Do you practice it? To what extent do you practice it? What do you do with the hadith? Do you practice it? To what extent do you practice it? So what hukmu? Ma hukmu? What's the hukum of it? The hukum is when you find an ayah or a hadith or evidence which is clear, zahir in that sense, okay, whereby the meaning is clear without any further contemplation, وجوب العمل بما ظهر معه خاصا كان أو عاما. If the meaning is clear of an ayah, then there's only one more thing you're going to do. You have to action it. It's wajib for you to do it. Right? So when Allah said Allah has made transactions halal and usury haram, meaning is quite clear. It doesn't need further contemplation. The meaning is quite self-explanatory. So as a Muslim, what do I need to do now? I need to accept that transactions are halal and riba is haram. It's wajib upon me to take that on board and action it and believe it. Believe it and action it. That means I can't go out there and start dealing with usury because it's haram. It's wajib for me to action it. That means I can't go out there and start forbidding people from transactions because Allah has made it halal. Allah has made it halal. And I can't forbid something that Allah has made halal. Does that make sense? Yeah? So, the end product, the hukum of a zahir, an apparent meaning in a word or a phraseology or a phrase or an ayah, is that we have to action it. Wujubul amal. You have to action it. However, even though we action it, there is an ihtimal. There is an ihtimal. There is a possibility. There is a possibility that this ayah may also be referring to something else at the same time. The possibility of it being multi-layered, multi-meaning is there. Does that make sense? This ayah is saying transactions are permissible and riba is haram. It's clear in its meaning. Even though it's clear in its meaning, its clarity isn't to the extent that the possibility of an alternate intention from intended meaning from Allah Rabbul Izzati Jalla Jalaluhu is impossible. What that means is there is a possibility, even though the meaning is zahir, there is a possibility of another meaning being intended at the same time in this ayah. There could be additional meanings. There could be additional meanings. So exactly what is riba? What is riba? What does riba mean? Okay? What kind of transactions has Allah made halal? There could be details. Okay? Also, مع احتمال إرادة غير, something else can be intended. So now, the reason why there is a possibility of something else being intended, the reason why it's like this is because this is only the first level of clarity. Zahir is just the first level of clarity. There is the next level, which is even more clear, Nass. Even more clear. And then there is Al-Mufassar, another third level of clarity. And then we have the fourth level of clarity, Al-Muhkam. The Muhkam ayah and the Muhkam sentence, the Muhkam word, the Muhkam command, the Muhkam phrase is so clear that there's no possibility of any other intended meaning. So we'll go in stages. First, we've just covered Zahir. Zahir, where the meaning is clear, no need for extra contemplation. However, there remains the possibility of other intended meanings therein. How would that be known? That would be known by the Mufassirun, by the Usooliyun, by the scholars, by the jurists, by the lawgiver, by lawgiver, i.e. Allah is the lawgiver and Rasul is the conveyor. And so the Prophet ﷺ is also extending or applying the law that Allah Azza wa Jal has given to him. So therefore, does Allah have another meaning intended in this ayah? The Prophet ﷺ would specify for us. Okay? And those who have understood from the Prophet ﷺ, i.e. the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, could specify for us. Without going into too much extension, I want you to understand that there are 4 levels of clarity, clear meaning, clear dilala when it comes to a word or a phrase or a sentence. And the first level is Zahir. So then what's the next level of clarity? The next level of clarity is called Nass. Nass. What is Nass? Nass ما سيق الكلام لأجله كقوله تعالى وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. He's going with the same ayah, but he's giving a different level of meaning, which is the definition of Nass, which is the next level of clarity after Zahir, is a phrase which has been brought forth for a specific reason. Or in another translation we say ما سيق الكلام لأجله, which is وأحل الله سيق لبيان التفرقة بين البيع والربا. When Allah speaks in an ayah, the phrases and the sentences that come before and the phrases and the sentences that come after this ayah that you're looking at. So Allah says وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Ya Hafiz Sab, what's before it? What's the ayah before it? Look it up on your phone, go on. End of Surah Al-Baqarah. Okay? Yeah, that's coming after that. يا أيها الذين اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا إن كنتم مؤمنين فإن لم تفعلوا فآذنوا. That's later on. But before that, come on, Hafiz Sahib, it's before the Ayatul Dain. About 3-4 pages before the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. Yeah, come on, Habib, come on. Who is Hafiz? Pull out وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا in your Quran. Shaykh Ridwan is on it. Let's see if we can beat him. الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَا. What's ayah before that? Start from the ruku'. No, after that. No, Ahmed, you're going too far. That's Ayatul Dain, that's afterwards. Okay, fine, I have to pull out my mushaf then. إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُومُ. That's what Shaykh Ridwan as well said. Okay. Let's go to Surah 2, Ali Imran. Let's flick back. Okay, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا تَدَايَنْتُمْ. There you go. There you go. لِلْفُقَرَاءِ الَّذِينَ يُحْصِرُونَ, like Shaykh said. الذين يأكلون الربا لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا وحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. So this ayah has got a context. There's ayat before it and there are ayat after it. That's called context. Context is called siyaq. Context is called siyaq. What comes before, what comes after gives you context. That's called siyaq. So the context of this ayah is that Allah is saying الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ. Allah is just after talking about charity and مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت سبع, like those who spend in the path of Allah, then when they spend, Allah will multiply in a way like كمثل حبة, like a seed. Okay? أنبتت سبع سنابل, which brings forth 7 spikes. Okay? في كل سنبلة 100 حبة. Wallah, and then from every single sumbula there are 100 seeds. So that means 7 times 100 is what? 700. So the donation is multiplied by 700 or even more based on your sincerity. So Allah is talking about donation and charity first. Then Allah says, don't give the faulty items in your for charity, give the good. And then Allah says, الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُم. Those who spend their property بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ, night and day, سِرًّا وَعَلَانِيَةً, in privacy and in public. فَلَهُمْ أَجْرُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. Then they will have a great reward with Allah. وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ. No fear for them. وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, and they will never be saddened. And then Allah straight away after this, after explaining the virtue of sadaqah, الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَا, as for those who consume usury, لَا يَقُومُونَ إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُومُ الَّذِي يَتَخَبَّطُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ, they don't stand except for the one who's been struck by shaitan, like roughly translating. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ, they have been struck by shaitan. Why? They become victims to shaitan. Why? Because ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ, they said, the kuffar, the mushrikeen, the Quraysh, the Arab, they used to say, what's wrong with usury, mate? What's wrong with riba? Because ذَلِكَ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَا, transactions are like riba anyway. Dealing, when I buy and sell something, when I make trading, am I not profiting? Do I not buy an item for £1 and then sell it for £2 and make a profit? Do I not do that? Isn't that what transaction is? So they're saying, look, you're making a profit from any item that you buy and sell anyway. You go to رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ, in the winter and the summer, you go to Yemen, you go to Sham, you buy stuff for cheap, you sell it for expensive. That's what transactions are. Here with riba, we're simply lending someone money for money and making money on top of it. Or we're simply lending someone money for time and charging them. So they're trying to say, look, our riba, our usury, is just like transactions. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to misconstrue. They're trying to pollute. They're trying to confuse. Are they not trying to confuse? They're trying to confuse what's transaction and what's riba. So they're trying to justify their wrong by comparing it to halal. So Allah then says, no. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. Allah has made bay', transactions halal, and riba haram. So the phrase itself, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى, is clear. Allah has made transactions halal and riba haram. However, the context is telling us that the purpose of this phrase is to differentiate actually between what's riba and what's transaction. Does that make sense? Because they're trying to conflate it. They're trying to say, look, you're saying that riba is haram, but you're trading at the same time. So the context of the ayah is telling us that the ayah has been revealed in order to differentiate between riba and trade. Does that make sense? So that's what Nass is. Nass is when the context, when the siyaq of the kalam, when the siyaq of the hadith, the siyaq of the ayah is supporting the meaning, is driving the meaning, is giving or bringing forth the meaning. What is it? Allah said, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. We understood from the phrase itself that Allah has made transactions halal and riba haram. Now from the context we understand Allah isn't just simply stating the fact that transactions are halal and riba is haram. Allah is, by saying this, actually trying to deter and push back upon their confusions, upon their tampering with the Sharia, upon their tampering with the laws of right and wrong. So Allah is clarifying the difference. That's the context of it. So the siyaq of it is لِبَيَانِ التَّفْرِقَةِ بَيْنَ الْبَيْعِ وَالرِّبَى. Allah has brought the context to tell us, listen, yes, halal and riba is haram and transactions are halal. But one of the key purposes is also to differentiate that they are not the same. You're saying they're the same, but they're not the same. Why are they not the same? Because Allah has made one halal and Allah has made one haram. Allah has given one reason here, but there are many, many more reasons. Allah has given the ultimate reason, the ultimate illah, the ultimate reason why it's halal and haram was Allah has made one halal and one haram. Now if you look at the hikmah behind the illah, or on top of the illah, what's the wisdom behind why Allah has made riba haram? You will find that He makes the poor poorer and He makes the rich richer, and in it there is so much dhulm and oppression, and in it there is darkness and there is no social justice. Many, many other things. But the ultimate illah, the ultimate reason is why? Because Allah said so. Remember we spoke about this before, a few weeks ago, illah and hikmah. Some people say, they just follow the hikmah, not the illah itself, right? So Allah is telling us that riba is haram, transactions are halal. But the main siyaq of it, the context of it, is to tell us the differentiation and the difference between them. Why? Because the kuffar and the mushrikeen tried to assimilate and make them look like the same thing. Does that make sense? So then, from Zahir, from the apparent meaning of the ayah, we understood one layer, which is that riba is haram and transactions are halal. Now when we look at Nass, the siyaq, the context, we see, hold on, that's fine, we understood that, but there is a clearer meaning, which is that Allah is differentiating between transactions, and riba. Do you see how that's a deeper meaning? A more clearer meaning, a more profound meaning, another way of looking at it, which is that the Nass meaning of it is, the meaning which is Nass from it, is that the context is telling us that Allah is differentiating between riba and between transactions. So let not anyone confuse it. If someone tries to now conflate and confuse and say, listen, it's okay, I'm gonna take interest, I'm gonna take usury, because just like transaction, my money is a commodity, my money is an asset. Money is not a commodity, nor is it an asset, it's a currency. Money is not a commodity, nor is it an asset, it's a currency. These are words, you need to understand what they mean. Okay, commodity and an asset is something that like an item that you can buy and sell and make profit on top of. However, the money itself, you can't make profit on top of it. That means you can't sell £5 for £6. You can't sell 1 kg of date for 2 kg of date. They have to be same. They have to be same in amount. Okay, especially if they're of the same standard, the same quality, and etc. So the point, brothers and sisters, is that we've understood that Zahir is one level of clarity. What's the next level of clarity? You tell me. Say the word. Nass, yes, engage. What's the next level of clarity? Nass. Nass is what? By context. And Zahir is by what? By translation and looking, analysis of the words itself, without further contemplation. So Zahir meaning is by looking at the phrase itself, whereas Nass is by looking at the context, what's before, what's after. And in this ayah of وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا, we find the context is to actually differentiate between the halalness, the permissibility of transaction, and the haramness or the impermissibility of riba. Because the kuffar and the mushrikeen were trying to conflate them, to try and confuse people, to try and justify their crimes as they do. Criminals try to justify their crimes by misconstruing the truth. They say, oh, this is our historical and ancestral home. We came here 3,000 years ago, so now we have to commit genocide to take it back. And these are Palestinians, innocent children, women, being massacred and genocided on a daily basis. You think this is how you take your God's promised land back? God promised it to you, but you have to do all of this? And a lot of people that say, this is our God's promised land, guess what? They're even atheists. Yeah? Wallah. I'm telling you, the founder of this movement, okay, was an atheist himself. God promised me this land. Okay, do you believe in God? No. Whoa, what's going on, bro? What kind of madness is this? But that's what it is. It's absolute madness. So then, we've understood 2 layers of clarity. Zahir, and by the way, you know how I always have some inclusion of the Palestinian cause in my speeches? It's a commitment. My commitment is that whenever I give a speech, whenever I give a khutbah, whenever I address publicly, I will try my best to try and include the Palestinian cause as a part of it all the time. Why? Because whenever I'm speaking, giving a khutbah, giving a lecture, I'm trying to explain something about the deen. And the Palestinian cause is not just a part of the deen. It's from the core of our deen. It's a part of our iman. What deen is there without iman? And the Palestinian cause, the muqaddasat of Islam, the Philistine and the Aqsa is a part of our iman, to believe in the fact that it's the 3rd sacred site of Islam. Right? So, inshallah, we carry on bi'idhnillah. May Allah accept us all. Ta'rif al-Mufassar. The 3rd layer of clarity is called al-Mufassar. It's called al-Mufassar. But before we go to Mufassar, I want to tell you something about a-Nass. So we've understood that the Nass meaning of a word is understood by the context. So what's the ruling of it? If you come across an ayah or a hadith or revelation whereby the meaning is Nass, is clear, is understood from the context, so what do you do with this? You just ignore it? You just leave it aside? No. حُكْمُهُ وُجُوبُ الْعَمَلِ. You have to action it. You have to fulfill the command. You have to do what the ayah is telling you to do. Okay? خاصًا كان أو عامًا. Whether it's khas, specific or general. However, there is a possibility احتمال التأويل والتخصيص. There is a possibility that ta'wil may occur to this ayah, or takhsis, specification may occur to this ayah. So these ihtimalat and these possibilities, for example, the first one in Zahir, there was ihtimal, there was a possibility that something else is being intended at the same time. And now we understood from Nass that while Allah is telling us halal and haram of it, there was something else also being intended, which is that tafriqa, differentiation between riba and bay'. That was ihtimal in the first one. In the second one, in Nass, there is also ihtimal. In the third one, Mufassar, there is also ihtimal, there's a possibility. The only one, there is no ihtimal, there is no possibility, there is no probability, there is no alternate intended meaning, is the last one, which is al-Muhkam. The Muhkam ayat, there's no possibility of it being specified, there is no possibility of being intended otherwise, there is no possibility of it becoming mansukh or abrogated, nothing. That's Muhkam, we're coming to that. So now we finished Zahir and Nass, now we're going to go to Mufassar. So yeah, Habaib, what is al-Mufassar? A Mufassar is a Mufassar word, a Mufassar phrase, a Mufassar ayah is ما ظهر المراد به من اللفظ ببيان من قبل المتكلم بحيث لا يبقى معه احتمال التأويل والتخصيص كقوله تعالى فسجد الملائكة كلهم أجمعون. So the definition of tafsir or Mufassar is quite, do you understand tafsir? What does tafsir mean? If I say to you the tafsir of this ayah, what does it mean? It means explanation, isn't it? So when I say this word is Mufassar, this word has got tafsir, it means it's already been explained. That means there's no need for me to explain it again. Mufassar means it's already been explained. Explained by who? From the one who's speaking himself. In the context of the Quran is, who's the speaker of the Quran? Allah. And who's the speaker of the Hadith? The Prophet ﷺ. Right? So Mufassar is when the meaning is explained by the speaker himself. How so? Tafsir or Mufassar is a phrase where the meaning is clear. Clear. Hold on, nothing special, because we said that about Zahir and Nass as well, isn't it? So how do you stand out? How does Mufassar stand out? Okay, Tafsir, Mufassar is a phrase where the meaning is clear and the explanation is accepted from the speaker. That's the differentiation. When it came to Zahir, the meaning was clear by itself. When it came to Nass, there was an additional factor, which was what? The context. Nass, what was the additional factor? Say for me, speak with me. Context, which is called siyaq. When it comes to Mufassar, there is an additional clarification, which is that the speaker himself is clarifying what he means by what he's saying. Okay? So, is a phrase where the meaning is clear and the explanation is accepted from the speaker himself. Speaker himself. Or if it's a Sahabiyya, speaker herself. Okay? So there is no possibility of another interpretation or it becoming khas. So if the speaker himself is saying, I mean this by this, is there any possibility of it meaning anything else? Huh? Is there anything? So for example, someone says, I tell you, Yasin, I give you this pencil. I was going to say phone, but it's going to be risky. I'll give you this pencil. He said, yeah, Ustad, for free or by price? I said, for free. It's for you. Take it. Who's explaining the meaning of I give you? Me, right? I'm the speaker, so I'm explaining myself. So when I myself explain what I mean by what I'm saying, that's called Mufassar. I am doing tafsir of my own statement. Because I myself, now, that was called Mufassar. Now if I said, Yasin, I'll give you this pencil. It's for you. That's all I said. I never said it's for free. I never said no charge. I just said, I'll give you this pencil, it's for you. The meaning is clear that I've given him the pencil. Is it for free? It is for free if we look at the Nass. If we look at the context. The context is that this is not a transaction room. This is a masjid and this is a class. So now I tell him, I'll give you this pencil. Naturally we'll assume that this is a classroom setting. We're in a masjid, we're in a halaqah, we're between salahs. Surely the ustad is not trying to sell him a pencil. Plus the price of it is very meager, a few pennies. So there's no chance he's trying to sell it to him. How did we understand this? We understood it from what? The context, from the Nass. Okay? So, now, that was, even though that is Nass, like you understood it from the context that I'm not going to charge him for the pencil, there is still a possibility, right? I might pull him up after Salah and say, yo, Yasin, you still have to give me 20p, for the pencil. I said I'm going to give it to you, but like, I didn't mean it completely free. So if I said that to you, technically you'll be like, okay, khalas, he's got a point. I mean, he didn't say that it's for free. He just said he's giving me the pencil. Now, however, if right now I said, I give you this pencil for free, take it, no charge whatsoever, what's that called? That's called Mufassar, because I myself have explained that this is for free completely. The speaker himself is explaining. There's no need for context. The context is irrelevant because the speaker himself is explaining. So Mufassar is when the speaker himself is explaining what he means by the statement. And what is the example of that? فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كُلُّهُمْ أَجْمَعُونَ. Allah is saying, all of the angels prostrated. All of the angels prostrated. So when Allah says all of the angels prostrated, you might be thinking, maybe some of them didn't. Maybe some of them didn't. Maybe some of them were busy with other tasks like holding up the heavens and the earth. Maybe some of them were busy with holding Ashiqur Rahman. Maybe some of them were busy doing hisab of people. But then Allah wants you to not assume that. So Allah said, kulluhum, all of them. The angels prostrated. You think angels prostrated, okay, maybe there are exceptions. But Allah will do tafsir of it. How so? Allah will say, kulluhum, all of them. Is there any, now can you assume that some of them were remaining behind? Okay, now you're thinking, okay, all of them prostrated, maybe they took turns. Some now, some later, so that, the universal process is being maintained. So the timing maybe could have been different. Allah says, no, I'll do further tafsir. Ajma'un, at the same time. Is that clear enough for you now? Do you have is there any doubts as to how they prostrated and if they prostrated? Allah said all of the angels prostrated together at the same time. Illahu Iblis al-mal'un. Except for Iblis, and that's why he's cursed. All of the angels are prostrating. Allah is telling them to prostrate. And he said, no, I can't prostrate for him because, that you've made him from sand and you made me from fire. Okay? I'm not going to prostrate for something that's made out of sand. So, illa Iblis, he done istakbar, he became mutakabbir, he became arrogant. And so Allah ejected him. And that's why A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, they ejected shaitan. The point is, going back to the actual ayah, فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كُلُّهُمْ أَجْمَعُونَ, is this ayah is what? Is Mufassar. Why is it Mufassar? Is if Allah said فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ, the angels prostrated, and the meaning is Zahir. It's clear, isn't it? It's clear, Allah, angels prostrated. But when Allah said kulluhum, all of them, Allah made it Mufassar, because Allah done tafsir by what He means by the angels prostrated, which is that all of them. And then He done further tafsir of it by saying ajma'un, all of them together, by saying it at the same time. So now this ayah is called Mufassar. If you hear such an ayah, what's the duty upon us as a believer? ما حكمه? What's the hukum of it? وجوب العمل بمدلوله قطعا. If you find such an ayah where there is a command like that, so now this command, when Allah commanded the angels to prostrate, and all of the angels prostrated, was this wajib upon Iblis? Was it wajib upon Iblis? Huh? Fard. Fard, as in wajib, as in, yes, wajib as in fard, yes. Was it fard upon Iblis as well? Of course it was. Was there any doubt that it was fard upon him? No, so that's what qat'an means. There's no possibility of a dhann, of no doubt. That means when Allah speaks, when the lawgiver, when the shari', when Allah Rabbul Izzati Jalla Jalalu is speaking in this manner with tafsir, with mufassar, and Allah says, usjudu, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. Allah is saying all of you prostrate, and they all prostrate. Then the action that we need to do from that, or they need to do, those who are commanded, is wajib and farda. They must action it straight away. They can't delay. But there is only one possibility. There's only one possibility left here. What's the possibility? That there may be abrogation afterwards. What's the abrogation? Do you prostrate to human beings? Do you prostrate to human beings? Do you prostrate to human beings? Did the malaika prostrate to Adam? Was he a human being? So what happened, that means? That means there was abrogation of prostration to human beings afterwards, wasn't it? So that's the only one possibility left. With Mufassar, everything else is clear, with the one possibility that the hukum and the ruling may become abrogated. What does abrogated mean? Mean cancelled out, removed. taken out of Sharia later on. Does that make sense? So with Mufassar, everything is clear because Allah has made it clear. He didn't tafsir of it himself. However, the possibility that Allah may change the rule afterwards still remains. Himself. Allah may change the rule himself still remains. And that's called nasakh. That's called abrogation. Did nasakh and abrogation happen in this context? In this ayah? It happened because Allah, or it happened in the sense that it happened in terms of the law or the command of prostrating to Adami. Do you prostrate to any human beings? Did the Sahaba prostrate to the Prophet ﷺ? Okay, does the wife prostrate for the husband? Does the husband prostrate for the wife? Wal-'iyadhu billah. Even though there are hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said that if he was to command anyone to prostrate, then it would be to honor and to appreciate the sacrifice and the efforts of the husband from the wife. So there are, but it's not literal, is it? So those who say, Faddul salam, you have to hold your foot and like lower your head and give salam like that, this is some other culture. ما في مش من الإسلام يعني. I don't know where they got it from. You know, the qadam busi, kissing the feet and touching by foot and giving salam. And this is a tradition they have in certain Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistan culture. And they make the bride or the groom prostrate, not prostrate, but lower himself in that way and give salam to the elders and salam to the father-in-law, mother-in-law. I'm like, yo, have some self-respect, man. You should say salam. There's a way of salam alaikum, a handshake. The Prophet ﷺ taught us. You know, he taught us. He's the لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. So when you belittling yourself, bowing yourself like that, we don't do that. Muslims, we only bow to who? Allah Rabbul Izzah. Nobody else. And that's why even if you need to honor your sensei or your master in karate or your jiu-jitsu or your any other martial arts, you can say, all of this bowing stuff, avoid it. Respect, dignity, honor, adab, ta'addub is all there, but according to how Allah wants us to. According to how Allah has commanded it. I did say to you, there are 4 layers of clarity. What was the first? Zahir. What was the second? Nass. What was the third? Mufassar. What's the 4th? Muhkam. Muhkam. Now, qat' is there. I know what you're trying to say. But qat' is clear evidence. But that clear evidence, qat' is 2 types. Qat' al-thubut, qat' al-dilala. We'll come to another time. The point is, the 4th layer of clarity in which there is no doubt, there is no possibility, there is no probability, it's absolutely clear and it will never become mansukh as well, is something called al-muhkam. Okay? And that's why Allah said in Surah 2, Ali Imran, what's the ayah? آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب وأخر متشابهات. So now in that same juz, we'll go to a few pages later in Surah Al Imran. Allah says, هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب. He is the one that has sent down to you the book. منه آيات محكمات. From it, in it, there are ayat which are muhkamat, clear cut, no possibility of abrogation or alternative meaning. Ayat muhkamat, muhkam. We're going to understand what muhkam means now. منه آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب. They are the essence of the book. They are the core of the book of the Quran. وأخر متشابهات. And some other ayat which are mutashabih. The meaning isn't so clear. Isn't so clear because Allah wanted them to be like this. If Allah wanted, He could have made the whole Quran muhkam, isn't it? But Allah is saying, I revealed this book. Some of the ayat I made it muhkam. Other ayat I made it mutashabih. If the whole of the mankind and the jinn kind today went to one and said, we're going to make the mutashabih ayat muhkamat, you can't do it because Allah wanted it like that. وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَاتٍ. So why did Allah give us the mutashabihat ayat? The unclear ayat, why? Allah is going to explain to you. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ. As for those who have disease in the heart, the munafiqeen, or the weak believers, those who have ill intentions, فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ ابْتِغَاءَ الْفِتْنَةِ. Those who have zayg in their heart, illness in their heart, a corruption in their heart, then they get this mutashabih ayat, the unclear ayat, and they try to use it to follow their desires. They try to bend the laws of Sharia with the mutashabihat ayat. Ibtigha al-fitna, to try and do fitna. وَابْتِغَاءَ تَأْوِيلِ, and to do ta'wil of it in a wrong way, to interpret it in a wrong way to try and serve their interest. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ, but no one knows the true ta'wil of these ayat which are mutashabihat except for who? إِلَّا اللَّهُ, except for Allah. So what are we supposed to do about that then? If only Allah knows the ayat mutashabihat, their meaning, what are we supposed to do with them? Ya Rab, these mutashabihat ayat, Allah, what do you want us to do with them? You revealed it to us, what should we do? Allah is telling us what to do. وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّا بِهِ, those who are the most knowledgeable of the believers, and that's an example for us. Allah has given us an example of what we should do. They say, Ya Rab, we believe in all of it. Our job is to believe in the entire Quran, the muhkamat and the mutashabihat, because it's all from the speech of Allah. So our test here is that we believe and we honor the entire Quran in the same way, whether the meaning is muhkam or is mutashabih. Okay? كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّنَا, we're supposed to say and believe كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّنَا, all of it is from my Lord, my Rabb. وَمَا يَذَّكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ, and only those who have true hearts of understanding will reflect and understand this. So therefore we understand that Allah sent certain ayat mutashabihat, other ayat muhkamat. What is muhkamat? Al-muhkam. ما هو المحكم؟ ما ازداد قوة ما ازداد قوة على المفسر. ما ازداد قوة على المفسر. Muhkam is that which is even more clear than the Mufassar. بحيث, how can it be more clear? We thought it seemed like Mufassar is so clear, it can't get any clearer. How is it more clearer? Because it's more clear than Mufassar, because there's no possibility when it comes to Muhkam, there's no possibility of ta'wil, of interpretation. There's no possibility of takhsis, of specification. There's no possibility of abrogation, of nasakh. The muhkamat ayat are so powerful, so profound, so clear, so thorough, intended by Allah, that they do not accept any interpretation, ta'wil. They do not accept any, as in like interpretation in a different way. Translation, yes, but interpretation in a different way. Allah specified what is meant by that. They do not accept any specification. However Allah said it, that's what Allah meant. Don't narrow it down. Don't make it smaller. Don't make it bigger. Allah specified what He wants from the meaning. And no abrogation either. Meaning it's not going to get cancelled out later on. The ruling is not going to change afterwards. So what are the examples? When Allah says, Inna Allah bi kulli shay'in alim. Allah knows everything. Does this Allah knowing everything have an interpretation? Do we need to understand it metaphorically? Or does this mean literally exactly what it says, that Allah knows everything? So therefore, this ayah doesn't accept any interpretation, metaphorical interpretation, because Allah said what He meant and meant what He said, that Allah knows everything. That's why Allah knows even the leaves that fall, every single grain of sand, every single drop of water. Allah knows every single cell and atom. Allah knows even the darkest of the dark. Allah knows the brightest of the bright. Allah knows the heavens and the earth. Allah knows everything. So therefore, do we see how this ayah does not accept any interpretation? Okay, does this ayah accept any specification? Imagine someone said, okay, Allah is saying Allah knows everything, but Allah means only in this world. Would that be iman or kufr? Would that be iman or God speak to me? Is that iman or kufr? Kufr, because Allah hasn't specified. Allah is saying He knows everything. If some intelligent, super intelligent, like thinks, mashallah, look at me, I'm a philosopher, I know everything, yeah? So he says, no. God Almighty, He did not mean it like that. Or he, like with the funny, funky accent, said, He did not mean it, He just meant it. He only knows what happens in Mecca. As for England, if someone, wal'iyadu billah, even made such an assumption, then guess what that would be? That would be kufr. Because this ayah is so clear, it has no possibility of interpretation or specification. You can't make the meaning smaller. Does that make sense? Does it accept any abrogation? Can anyone come and say, well, Allah knew, but no, a'udhu billahi min dhalik. You can't even state such a kufri kalam. So therefore, the possibility of abrogation, that this rule will change, or this ayah will change, or this ayah will become something else, is not possible. Because Allah has always known everything, knows everything, and will always know everything forever. Do you see how this meaning is so clear that it's the highest level of clarity? And that's the meaning of al-Muhkam, where the meaning is so clear, it accepts no interpretation, accepts no specification, and accepts no abrogation. Okay, nothing can touch it. Nothing can touch it. So Muhkam is a phrase which is even more apparent than tafsir, so that the interpretation of khas and abrogation is not accepted. Like Allah says, indeed Allah is knowledgeable of all things, and verily Allah does not. There's another ayah like, there are many ayat like that, and from the ayat that are like this, Inna Allah la yadlimu an-nasa shay'a. Allah does not oppress humanity at all. Okay, so if someone said, Allah doesn't oppress humanity at all, but let's interpret it a bit, maybe Allah oppresses a little bit. Is that interpretation accepted? La wallah, never. So no interpretation. Someone said, okay, khalas, let's do takhsis of it. Maybe Allah doesn't oppress the Muslims, but maybe He oppresses non-Muslims. Is that accepted? No. Because there's no takhsis of it. If someone said, maybe Allah didn't oppress people before, at the time of Badr and Uhud, but right now, maybe there's a bit of oppression, a'udhu billahi min dhalik. There's no abrogation either. These ayat are so clear, so muhkam, there's no interpretation, there's no specification, and there's no abrogation. Remember these three words. Muhkam is that ayah which accepts no interpretation, no specification, nor any abrogation. Does that make sense? Abrogation is Nass. We will change afterwards. Okay? So what's the hukum? What do you do? If there's a muhkam ayah, what's your job? What do you think you have to do with a muhkam ayah? Do it. No possibility of anything else except for wujub al-amal, fardiyat al-amal. It is necessary to act and believe in the muhkam ayat without any hesitation or any doubts. So when Allah says, Inna Allah bi kulli shay'in alim, mate, you ain't got a choice. Believe it, accept it, digest it, it's khalas, sami'na wa ata'na. As such. When it comes to belief in the Quran and the Sunnah, it's that which is tawatur, that which is sahih. We believe in all of it. But when I say, what do you do with it? I'm not talking about believing or not, I'm talking about wujub, like, what do you do with it in terms of action? How do you action it? How do you action it? Certain ayat, you have to action it instantaneously. While other ayat, they have multi-layered meaning. Like for example, you've seen with the ayat of riba and bay'. The Zahir, what was the Zahir meaning? From the apparent wording. So, let's go again. With 4 words today. I said 8, 4 is enough. Zahir means you understand the meaning from the word itself, phrase itself, sentence itself. Nass, you understand the meaning from the context. Okay, Mufassar, from the speaker himself is explaining what it means. And Muhkam, so clear, accepts no possibility of interpretation, specification, or abrogation. You got that? Can someone say it to me? Well, it looks like you've been taking notes. 4 in order. What's Zahir? From where? From the wording itself. Yeah. Nass, not Nasr. Nass. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Nass is when the context is clear.
Clarifies the meaning. Good, good. Mufassar?
Is when
the speaker clarifies what he means by his speech. Okay, cool. And then 4th is?
More clear than
Muhkam, the highest level of clarity. Accepts no, start from the top, accepts no interpretation, specification, or abrogation. Got that, inshallah? Okay, cool. Jazakumullah. Inshallah, next week we'll go to other side, which is unclarity and the layers of unclarity. Okay, and obscurity, if you like. Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. We'll end it now because adhan is now, isn't it? Isn't adhan now? Subhanakallahumma ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.